Hello, friends. So, Bible study, the NIV, 1 Corinthians, chapter 9. We're going to be doing verses 1 through 18. So, this parable is called The Rights of an Apostle. Verse 1. Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are you not the result of my work in the Lord? Even though I may not be an apostle to others, I surely am to you. For you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. Anybody he brought closer to God is proof of his apostleship in the Lord. Every person an apostle assists, and they end up feeling closer to God as a result, is proof of work. When you're doing the work, when you got your head down doing the work, you don't really need to spend time trying to explain to anybody what you're doing. Your proof is in what you're showing. It's in the work, which is what it is to be a disciple of Jesus, because that's what he did. He didn't stand there and ask for a bunch of fanfare all over the place. He told you who he was, and then he went and showed you with his hands and his responses and how he counseled and how he healed, and he did everything that the prophet said the Messiah would do. The prophet of the Lord has always been who's activated the Ark of the Covenant. And any Jewish person living in almost any time period of history around that time and earlier knew that. It wasn't the priest, it was the prophet. That's why they thought Jesus is going to activate the Ark of the Covenant and wipe out the Romans. That's what the prophets did. They had the ear of God. They listened. They were obedient. God showed them favor. And since they had the ear of God, they could get God to be on their side in a war, to protect themselves, to clear out people he didn't like, to do any of those things. The prophet was supposed to be a conquering warrior. If you go read the Old Testament, it's all over the place in there, along with the things that you're supposed to be watching for in the world, which absolutely, if you think of them as energy and not specific people, like the traits that they were showing, you will find it's all still valid right now. Politics is politics. Narcissists are narcissists. And people with mental disorders have always existed. In fact, there were more people with mental disorders the further back in time you go. That's why they were more aggressive. Verse 3. This is my defense to those who sit in judgment on me. Don't we have the right to food and drink? Don't we have the right to take a believing wife along with us, as do the other apostles and the other Lord's brothers and Caiaphas? Or is it only I and Barnabas who must work for a living? Who serves as a soldier at his own expense? Who plants a vineyard and does not eat the grapes? Who tends to a flock and does not drink the milk? Do I say this merely from a human point of view? Doesn't the law say the same thing? For it is written in the law of Moses, do not muzzle an ox while it is treading out the grain. Is it about an oxen that God is concerned? I mean, so these people who feel like, no, you do the work and I get the rewards, and that's how it should be, you're out of your mind. That's not how it works. It's never been how it works. You can only reap what you sow. And that's the way it's always been. Everybody has put in some level of effort. Yes, the Levitical priests had things, given to them in, tithing form. But they had daily things they had to get up and go do in the temple. It's not like they were sitting around doing nothing all day. They had a job to do. Like they had to get up every day and like slaughter animals to God and keep the holy fire going and bake all, bread to feed everybody and keep the whole temple clean and so there was all stuff for them to do every day. They weren't sitting around just sleeping in every day being lazy. Surely he says this for us, doesn't he? God doesn't really care about these material things. He doesn't want one of us doing work for another person for no money, no ways. No, if somebody's trying to oppress you, they don't love you. That's not love. You don't need to listen to any of that. Get away from them. Yes, this was written for us. Because when the plowman plows and the thresher threshers, they ought to do so in the hope of sharing in the harvest. If you put in the work, you get the reward. That's the way it is. If you have sown spiritual seeds among you, is it too much if we reap a material harvest from you? Don't act like, the priests aren't doing any work so they don't deserve the tithing. If you're getting anything from them, then you give something to them. It's meant to be a reciprocal, fill the love cups of each other thing. If others have this right of support from you, shouldn't we have it all the more? If we're doing more for you, shouldn't we be able to have more from you? That's the question he's asking. I'm not saying I support it or not. But we do not use this right. They're saying we could do this. This is historically what's correct, but we don't. On the contrary, we put up with anything rather than hinder the gospel of Christ. Don't you know that those who work in the temple get their food from the temple, and those who serve at the altar share in the offering on the altar? And that's true. That is exactly how that system was entirely set up. That's why they didn't need their own land to profit from. That's why they weren't allowed to have it. Their needs were going to be provided by the people. And it was going to be a requirement of the people to provide for it. And it always was. As far as I know, it still is. But I'm not in Jerusalem, so because the temple doesn't really exist there anymore. It's now the Dome of the Rock. In the same way, the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should receive their living from the gospel, live off the tithings. But I do not use any of these rights, and I am not writing this in the hope that you will do such things for me. I would rather die than have anyone deprive me of this boast. He says, I work for my money. I do this for free, and I can say that's the same thing for me. I help people heal with my words whenever my words will be effective. So I'm going to try. It's the nature of me. So, I'm going to encourage you to have the best possible day that you can, to treat each other with dignity, grace, and respect, and to remember that helping others is a privilege, not a burden. If you don't like somebody, then, do what you can with the words that you can. Maybe advise them to a person that would be more appropriate to help them, because maybe you're not the right kind of helper for them. If you guys don't get along and everything's going to be in conflict, then you're not the right helper for them. Do what you can, the way you can, and direct them to the right person that will help them or can help them, where it won't be in conflict. And, do it because it's the right thing to do. That's all the motivation we're supposed to need. Not if we're coming from our immaculate heart. Because it's the right thing to do is the only motivating factor if you're a genuine person. And he encourages you to be a genuine person in every moment. You're allowed to feel whatever you feel, You just have to politely express that to others. Because, being a grown-up and stuff.